Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Blog Talk Radio.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to my news briefing. This is episode 20. Today is the 6th of February. A lot going on in the world, and certainly a lot has been going on the last couple of weeks. I haven't had a chance to do one of these briefings. Some of you who've been watching the show for a long time might recognize the room I'm in. I'm actually not in Puerto Rico. I'm in California, in my old house in California, visiting here for a couple of days. And so today's show is from there. I don't have that great, amp or mic amp that Chris got me to buy and helped me set up. So sound is not going to be as good as it is in Puerto Rico. The amp stayed in Puerto Rico, but hopefully sound is good enough. But we are here in California for a few days. Next show will probably be on Sunday because I'm going to be traveling the rest of this week. And I might have some time to squeeze in a show. We'll see. But it is unlikely. We'll definitely be on Sunday. All right. Let's start with today. We're just going to hit on some of the obvious big topics in the news. Some of them obvious, some of them not so obvious, but some interesting topics in the news, stuff I want to talk about anyway. And I want to start with the stock market, obviously, right? I mean, wow, we suddenly got some volatility for a year. We had no volatility for over a year, really, for the last 8 years. We've had very little volatility, some declines in 2011, some declines in 2014. 11, it was the big, if you remember, Greece and the big debt crisis in Europe that affected financial stocks primarily, but really stocks all over the world. And since then, we've kind of had this steady growth in the stock market. And of course, last year, we had this amazing year with no down months. One of the best years on record for a first year of a president. Trump, as he would, took full credit for it. Took full credit for the rally in the stock market in January, and has fallen completely silent, as you would expect, with the increased volatility and decline of the stock market. Just a fun fact. I mean, everybody, I think, has noticed that. Nobody wants to take credit on the way down. Everybody wants to take credit on the way up. Certainly, this president. So part of the question is why? Why is the stock market suddenly done what it's done? Why has it got down a lot? Why suddenly, and today it kind of bounced around hugely. I think it spanned 1,200 points on the Dow. It went down a bunch and then went up a bunch, and it landed up like 2.3% after being down almost 5% yesterday and down quite a bit on Friday. So what's caused all this? So let me first say, as somebody that follows financial markets over the years, has followed financial markets over the years very closely, and I was a finance professor and somebody in the financial markets as an investor in a hedge fund, and I hate it when people come up with try to explain every daily movement in stock prices. It's almost impossible to do. It's usually meaningless. Most of the time when the stock market moves in a particular direction, the answer is why. You go, I don't know. You'd have to really go in there and figure out which stocks went up, which stocks went down. Remember, we're just talking about averages here. Which stocks went up, which stocks went down, why did they go up, why did they go down, and get into the nitty-gritty of actually going on. And most of the time I find that financial reporting on stock movement is shallow, superficial, stupid, and doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to try my best to do better than that, because it's not easy and it's not simple and it's not straightforward. But let me give it a shot at what I think has been happening over the last 8 years, really, since the end of technically the end of the recession in 2009 or even 2008, but really over the last 8 or so years where the stock market has steadily gone up systematically with some shocks to it, but almost always those shocks have come from the outside. And let me really say that I think this is all what we've seen up until really this last weekend is the Obama economy, is the result of the Obama economy. The Obama economy was basically a low growth, low risk, low volatility economy. Nothing much happened. Steady economic growth, steady job growth, a few quarters that were better, some quarters that were worse, but generally steady growth. And that, in spite of Trump taking credit for everything, that just continued into Trump's first year. Yes, economic growth was slightly higher than what it had been under Obama. But really, if you look at the numbers, it looks like just a continuation of the Obama economy. And I think the slightly higher numbers were primarily a consequence of deregulation that has happened over the last year. I think relatively still minor deregulation, but deregulation and a change in mood of businessmen during the first year under Trump. So you saw a continuing increase. So the economy has been growing slowly. Jobs have been growing slowly. Investment has been growing slowly. Companies have not been investing a lot. They've been sitting on cash. They've been, in a sense, hoarding, using a lot of that cash to buy back stock. But more than that, at the same time as the economy has been growing slowly, because of QE4, QE whatever, the Federal Reserve keeping interest rates so low, and actually for most of that period intervening in the markets by buying bonds, by buying debt, interest rates have been artificially low. And as a consequence of those artificially low debt, a lot of companies have been taking out debt. They've been issuing bonds. They've been leveraging up, taking on more and more and more debt. If you look at debt ratios of U.S. companies since the financial crisis, they have steadily increased. And using some of that money to buy back stock, not much investment again going on. That's why the steady growth, no sharp increases in economic growth. Now, when the Fed does this, and again, I apologize for the complexity, but you know what? Economics is complicated and financial world is complicated. When the Fed does this, in a sense, when they buy these bonds, they are printing money. They're circulating money into the economy. But the problem was, because there was very low investment, and because there was little demand for loans, primarily from small to medium-sized businesses and large businesses who are not really investing and not taking on debt to invest, the money didn't really circulate. And most of that money has been sitting at the balance sheet of the banks at the Federal Reserve. So even though a lot of money was printed, price inflation never really happened. And long-term bonds the yield stayed very low. Now, a low interest rate environment always results in, usually results in a high stock prices. And I don't want to get overly technical here, but think about a stock price as what I expect to get in the future from this company, the cash flows the company can generate in the future. And if interest rates, I believe, are going to be high in the future, then money I get in the future is worth less to me today. Less to me today, right? Because I could put it in a riskless bond and get that high return. So if I'm going to buy a stock, I'm not going to buy it as high. But if interest rates stay low throughout that period, then the money in the future is worth more to me today than if interest rates were high. Less, so $100 a year from now is worth less to me than $100 today, right? Everybody agree? It's why when we lend money to a friend, we demand interest. Because I'd rather have the money in my pocket than give it to you. If I give it to you and you're only going to return it in a year, I demand interest. I demand compensation for my deferring consumption into the future. I can't buy ice cream now. I have to wait a year for the ice cream. I want you to pay for that. That's interest. Put aside inflation, put aside everything else. There's been no price inflation. And therefore, that interest rate has been very low, and there's no expectation of inflation. Because think about it. One is the deferred consumption, but also when I lend you $100, I say, I wonder what the $100 can buy in a year as compared to today. And if I think it's going to buy less than what I can buy today, then again, I demand an interest rate for you. I demand compensation, both for my deferred consumption and for the loss of the value of the money I'm giving you. Call that inflation or price inflation. If price inflation is low or expected to be low, then that piece of it is compressed. All right? So we have cheap, very low long-term rates, no price inflation because money is just sitting at the Fed. It's not really circulating. It's not really being active with the economy. And we have very, very low price inflation expectations. And therefore, stock prices keep going up and up and up and up. And particularly with the expected tax cut and some deregulation from the Trump administration, the assumption is that profits are going to grow into the future. And with less investment, there's less competition. And therefore, profits are just going to grow. Now, what happened with the tax cut and what happened with the deregulation is I think over the last few weeks, people have started to think, maybe the economy is going to grow faster. And when we saw on Friday, job numbers slightly higher than expected, and just a general sense, the economy might take off here. Now, what happens when the economy takes off? What happens when the economy take off? And again, bear with me, right? Is that suddenly demand for loans goes up. People start using that money they have. Money starts circulating faster. More money is taken out from the banks through lending. And all that money sitting in reserves suddenly enters the economy and starts circulating. And that has the potential, or that will, all else held equal, raise inflation. If inflation goes up, the yields on long-term bonds go up and stock prices will go down. So what has happened over the last couple of weeks is inflation expectations have gone up. People's expectations about inflation in the future, not today, in the future have gone up because they worry about the economy doing well. Now that's the nuttiness of a mixed economy, right? The nuttiness of the mixed economy is because of the ridiculous economic policy of the Federal Reserve. What we have as a situation is if the economy does well, inflation will pick up. That's not necessarily natural. That's not natural at all. But in this case, it is a reality. If all those dollars that the Federal Reserve printed over the last 10 years start slushing around, price inflation will pick up. The value of the dollar will decline. And by the way, I talked on a previous show, I think, on the fact that both Trump and Mnuchin were talking down the dollar. That's also inflationary. So interest rates are going up. Long-term interest rates are going up, reflecting the risk of inflation. When long-term interest rates go up, almost always, stock prices go down because the value of my dividends, the value of the cash flow in the future today is less. All right, I have no idea if that was intelligible to you guys. I hope so. That was like my Finance 101 course condensed and a little bit of Economics 101 condensed into 10 minutes of presentation. So I hope that was useful and intelligent. But stock markets went down. Now, will inflation pick up in the future? Hard to tell, right? And it's hard to tell if inflation is really going to pick up. It's hard to tell whether the economy is going to go off. This is why it's risky. This is why you have volatility. Volatility is when people just don't know. And they disagree. Some people think it's going to get worse. Some people think it's going to get better, and they trade. It's a beautiful thing, right? So everybody is trading their beliefs about the future, and there's large disagreements. And when markets move as much as they are moving right now, up and down, It means that people in the markets are disagreeing. Now, look, there are other technical aspects going on. Somebody's mentioning the inverse VIX ETN. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I suspect that is in a sense a derivative where you trade on volatility. So everybody who bet, in a sense, that volatility was going to stay stable, that is, fluctuations would stay stable, there would be no big fluctuations, lost a fortune. Like it's down 92% because suddenly volatility went up. And this is it's kind of a weird instrument because it's in a sense leveraged. So things don't usually move 92%, but here they move 92%. So a lot of people lost a lot of money. And when people lose money, they start selling stuff, which increases volatility, which makes them lose more. But at the end of the day, those kind of things don't move markets more than, for a day or two. But of course, it's cause and effect. The volatility, it has to start with volatility. It has to start with the sharp market decline. Then this options, this VIX ETN drops even more, and that reinforces it. But the market bounced back a little bit today, and generally, I don't worry about these things. I'll tell you, put aside my hedge fund investments. That's in a particular sector. It's hedged, but my long-term investment, I'm almost 100% in stock. I'm very well diversified. I ride these waves. Now, if I really believed a cataclysm was coming, I would get out of stock. But I don't really believe a cataclysm is coming. I don't see it. I see a recession. I see us heading towards a recession, probably next year, probably 2019. Here's my scenario for recession. I've given you this scenario in the past. Exactly what I described is going to happen. Economic growth will accelerate. Job creation will accelerate. Money will start slushing around the economy. The Fed will not have sucked that money out of the economy fast enough. So you will start getting price inflation or the risk of price inflation. The Fed, in order to compensate for that, will raise short-term interest rates to try to curb inflation. That won't help initially, so they'll continue raising it as the economy is doing what we seem to look like doing well. The Fed will overreact and raise interest rates too high. And as a consequence, the economy will start contracting, money will start contracting, and we will down spiral into recession. I think that'll happen sometime in 2019, the recession part of it. I expect this year from an economic perspective to be a good year, and I expect 19 to be a bad year. I'm not making projections beyond that. I don't think this is the big one. It might be. I've always predicted there's going to be a big decline. I don't expect this to be the big one, but it very well could be. We've got a Federal Reserve chief, this Powell guy, who, as far as I know, is a nobody and a nothing. Typical kind of a Trump nomination. Somebody who has, other than loyalty to Trump, I don't think has any particular skill set or knowledge set or particular point of view or is particularly principled. He looks like a complete pragmatist. So this is the kind of guy who's likely to make real mistakes rather than following a rule and adjusting Fed policy appropriately. So it seems to me that when the crisis happened, it could be a pretty brutal one, but it's hard to tell. It's really hard to tell exactly the intensity of the crisis. Yeah. Somebody says he's not a nobody, he's the Fed chairman. Yeah, he was a nobody before he was Fed chairman, so now he's not a nobody. Now he's a somebody. But he's a nobody who became a somebody for no apparent reason that I can tell. Other than being a middle-of-the-road, pragmatic, unprincipled, as far as I can tell, nothing. Everything I've read about him suggests he's nothing. So, somebody's asking me to discuss the Fed balance sheet. That's exactly what I've been saying. That the Fed balance sheet at $4.3 trillion, I don't think they're going to unwind it. I think what's going to happen is the banks are going to start using the reserves because the Fed has a balance sheet and the banks, they have a reserve. If they start unwinding it, that's how they suck money out of the economy. That's when I think we go into recession. In a sense, raising interest rate is a way to unwind the balance sheet because what will they be doing? They will be... instead of buying bonds, they'll be selling all their bonds. as they sell all the bonds, they're sucking money out and expect interest rates to go up, which is exactly what I think will happen. They'll overreact and you'll get a recession, just as kind of we're hitting our stride economically. So I don't think, I don't, that's what I expect down the road, so say in a year or so too. Now, cryptocurrency, I would stay away from cryptocurrency. While I think cryptocurrency right now is like 98, 99 was for the dot-coms. I don't think anybody out there, except maybe some real geniuses in the VC community, know what to invest in and what not to invest in. By the way, I hate the word cryptocurrencies because none of them are currencies. They're more like assets. So crypto assets, you might call them. But I don't think anybody knows anything about them. I think they're going to be important. I think blockchain is going to be fundamentally important. I think we'll wake up 10 years from now and there'll be these big blockchain companies. There'll be this massive winners like Google was. Google was established in 1998. How many of us knew in 1999 that Google was going to win the search wars? Nobody. I mean, some people invested in Google hoping that, but they didn't know it. And I think the same thing is going to be true of cryptocurrencies. So I would be very careful with cryptocurrencies. I think everybody should have gold in their portfolio. Not a lot, a little bit as an inflation hedge. And I think now's not a bad time to have some inflation hedges. But the market has been going up since 2009. Since March of 2009, the market's gone up with very little down months. It's going to go down. It's going to go down. People are also buying by diversifying. Do you mean you take stocks on the index? I buy index funds, Vanguard index funds, or dimensional funds index funds. As cheap as I can find index funds on a broad aspect of the. And I buy some index funds on short-term bonds. I don't believe in long-term bonds. People are going to lose a fortune on long-term bonds. So on short-term bonds, I buy index funds on emerging markets, on U.S. markets, on a variety of different markets like that. And then I just hold them. Now, granted, I have another pool of money where I invest my own money in my hedge fund, and that's where I make money. The point of investing in the stock market is that's savings. That's long-term. And as long as I think that the U.S. economy is doing okay, I'm invested. If I thought the U.S. economy was heading towards absolute unequivocal disaster, I would get out. I stay away from anything like penny stocks. I stay away from cryptocurrencies. I stay away from speculative stuff. I stay away from particular companies because I have no advantage. I have no knowledge of particular companies beyond what I do in my hedge fund. Where there, I invest in particular companies and I short particular companies because I know with great. Me and my partners are probably the best in the country at that kind of investing. Somebody's asking, do you follow or tend to agree with Peter Schiff? No, I don't. I've disagreed with Peter since 2008, 7, and 8. I do not think that the dollar is just gonna be wiped out. I don't think gold is heading towards 10,000 anytime soon. I agree somewhat with Peter Schiff about Bitcoin and blockchain, but I'm more positive about blockchain. So I think Bitcoin is way overvalued, probably, and it's definitely behaving like a bubble stock. But I do not. So, and I think blockchain is a very valuable technology. But no, I think Peter Schiff has a very. I don't think it's a deep view of Austrian economics. And look, he's an investment guy and he's trying to make money, and I understand that. But I do not follow his advice economically, and I do not invest with Peter. And indeed, if you had bought stocks in 2009, if you had bought stocks in the middle of the crisis, even in October of 2008, and held them till today, you'd have done much, much, much better than Peter did, right? You would have done much, much better than Peter did. Much, much, much better than gold, much, much better than China. If you had just done a diversified portfolio of domestic and foreign stocks, you would have beaten pretty much anything. All right. let's see. There was another question here. What's your view of Nassim Taleb? I mean, Nassim Taleb is a brilliant guy. He's very, very smart. He's absolutely, fundamentally, deeply, deeply wrong in his epistemology. He is he's a complete skeptic. He doesn't believe in objective reality at all. He doesn't think we know anything. He doesn't believe in certainty in anything. I do believe in I think he's right on some issues like Black Swan. There are phenomena like Black Swan, and you have to be prepared for that. You have to be prepared for something completely unusual that you don't expect. But the more you know about economics, the more you study it, the more you invest in it, the more you will know. But it's still true, in spite of financial crisis, in spite of .com, in spite of everything. If you've held a diversified portfolio of stocks for the last 50 years, you would have done better than almost any activist investor. Now, again, what I invest when I'm active, I think you could be an activist investor in something you really understand, in something you really know. I do that in my hedge fund, and I make amazing returns with very, very low risk. I'm good at it. But that's a very, very narrow area that I know and I've spent my life becoming an expert in. I don't dabble in stocks. If you're dabbling in stocks, or if you're dabbling in investment, I cannot say much about my hedge fund because I'm not advertising here. I'm just talking about investing. Nothing I say here should be construed as me trying to pump up my hedge fund or anything like that. Absolutely not. I'm just telling you my investment experience. Wow, I mean, we got a ton of questions. Okay, we're gonna have to do a show on like finance and efficient market hypothesis and all this stuff because there's no way I'm gonna get through these questions. But look, I've been in the markets. I've been studying markets for 30 years. I've been investing in markets for 25 years. I've run money through one way or another, private equity hedge fund for 20 years. And again, I'm a finance professor. So, if you think that you know what cyber currency is going to win, and you haven't spent your life, you're not in that field completely dedicated 24 hours a day to cyber currencies, you're deluding yourself. If you think you know that gold is going to 10,000 in a year, you're deluding yourself. Very few of you know because you haven't studied it. It's not a slam against any of you. And just because you listen to one guy or you listen to me or you listen to Peter Schiff, you don't know. So either stay in cash or invest broadly because the chances of you knowing which asset class is underpriced or overpriced or whatever is pretty much zero. It's pretty much zero. Let active investing, leave that to the professionals. Leave that to the professionals. Now, again, I would hold gold because I think if price inflation is going to pick up and therefore gold prices are likely to go up. How much they go up, I don't know. I don't think very high because I do not think inflation will get under control, price inflation. I think what will happen is the opposite. I think that the Fed will raise interest rates to crush inflation and thus cause us to go into recession. Somebody's asking, is it bad that Yaron is my only news source? Probably. Probably. I mean, it's okay if you don't, if you don't, your life is not dependent on news. But it's good to have a little diversification. It's good to think for yourself. It's good to have a number of different sources. Okay, I'm running out of time here because I really only have about 10 minutes. I'm going to take this quick call, and then I want to talk about a couple of other topics. Hi, you're on the Yaron Brook Show. Who's this?
This is Logan.
Hey, Logan. What's up? Is this on the stock market?
I hope I'm not. Nope. So I can call back.
Is it on the news?
Stick on that topic. Is it on what?
Something in the news?
No.
Okay, why don't you call back on Sunday? All right?
Okay.
Okay, thanks. All right, so I want to talk about FISA, about these, I promised I won't talk much about Russia, and I don't talk about Russia, and I'm not interested in the whole Russia investigation. And partially, I haven't studied it because I'm not interested in it. It seems like just dirty politics all around, and it doesn't matter. But this FISA is interesting, not because what's in the memo. What's in the memo confirms my deep fears about the whole FISA setup and the whole monitoring and using the NSA to monitor our conversation. What's interesting is that the Republicans that are complaining about FISA in the memo are the same frigging Republicans who voted against reforming FISA 3 weeks ago. Right? So Justin Amash and some people in the Senate like Rand Paul were suggesting amendments to actually reduce the power of FISA to spy on Americans. And Republicans voted against that. They didn't want to reduce the power of FISA. And now they're complaining that FISA is being used for political purposes. Big surprise. Big surprise. Now, I think the biggest story, for example, of the Obama administration, which nobody talked about, or very few people talked about, very few people reported about, was the IRS scandal, where the IRS didn't give nonprofit status to certain ideological groups. Now, that's an outrage because it's using the political process to forward ideas. FISA is the same way if it's used for political purposes. But nobody seems to care. And the solution is not a Republican memo and a Democratic memo and a Republican rebuttal and a Democrat rebuttal to rebuttal and turning this into some kind of stupid political football. What needs to be done is a real discussion about the appropriateness of the government listening into the conversation, reading our emails, monitoring our chats, because we happen to be chatting or discussing something with a foreign entity. There has to be probable cause. There has to be a warrant. And let me just say something in this context about government secrecy. The presumption should always be no secrets. They are our agents. The government is our agent. The only time there should be secrets is when it's truly, unequivocally necessary for national defense. Certainly, you don't have every weapon system out there and where we station our bases and who are spies in different countries. That shouldn't be public information. But the presumption should always be release the information. So having secret courts that review secret memos about American citizens that are not discoverable in a lawsuit is wrong, unless again the threat is significant, imminent, and there's probable cause. So the whole FISA setup needs to be questioned rather than the particulars. And here's an example where it's being used, it looks like, it appears, for political purposes. But that's obvious once you set up something in secret like that, where you don't need to really document imminent national security threat. Then if we're going to listen to Americans, then how long is it going to take to use it for political purposes? And if you think that only Democrats do it, then you're delusional. You're delusional. Republicans play the same dirty tricks. And to use the government, to use government offices like the NSA or the FBI or the IRS for political purposes is one of the scariest things possible. It is the end of political freedom. It is the real significant step towards authoritarianism. And the fact that the American people are accepting of it, again, from the IRS scandal to all of the NSA stuff that's been revealed over the last, 5, 6, 7 years. The fact that nobody cares. And if this is true, that again, FISA was used for political purposes, that to me is really, really scary, and people should be unbelievably outraged by it. And the fact that they're not is very, very troublesome. So that's what I take for the whole memo, ping pong nonsense. And again, it's much of this is political nonsense, and the real meat here is everything to do with FISA. And again, these are the Republicans who did not vote to reform FISA, voted for the status quo. This is the status quo. You get what you vote for. Right? Quickly, I have to say something about Poland. I posted this article on Facebook about Poland, and man, oh my God, the Poles all came out and attacked me ruthlessly. And I've got so many comments on that thread. I didn't know There's so many. I guess I've got a big following in Poland, and they didn't like that I posted this. So Poland has passed a law. It actually passed today. It is now illegal to claim that there were Polish concentration camps. Right. So the idea is concentration camps were built by the Nazis, created by the Nazis, run by the Nazis, and it was Nazi concentration camps, German concentration camps, not Polish concentration camps. And many historians have pointed out that before the concentration camps, during the period of World War II, after the war, there has been quite a bit of anti-Semitism in Poland, and there were a lot of collaborators in Poland, and sometimes people talk about concentration camps in Poland. But, so there's talk about the extent to which the Polish participated in the Holocaust or did not. And that's a legitimate, I guess, historical dispute. But that's not the point. The point is, the Polish government now has outlawed a particular point of view. The Polish government has outlawed a particular perspective on history. Now, it might be wrong. I wouldn't call them Polish concentration camps. I would call them Germans, placing the primary responsibility where it belongs. But the Polish government now wants to outlaw types of speech. Now, again, this is not new. We've got this all over Europe. And the original limitations of free speech were enacted by the Germans after World War II, when they prohibited anybody at risk of going to jail from being a Holocaust denier, saying that the Holocaust didn't happen. Now, of course, the Holocaust happened. It's not a dispute in history. To what extent the Poles participated in the Holocaust, that is disputable. But the fact that there was a Holocaust is not disputable. And yet, people have a right to hold stupid ideas. People have a right to hold falsehoods. Once the government gets into the business of deciding what's true and what's false, we are dead. Free speech is dead. This is horrible. So there's a lot of objectivists, people on the free market who are praising Poland, who love Poland. Poland's the hope of Europe. No, the Polish government, this Polish government is a government that is heading towards fascism. This is a government that's a proto-fascist government. This is a government that is restricting free speech, taking over the media, reducing the media. This is a government that is reducing freedoms. This is a very dangerous government and a part of a trend in Eastern Europe towards greater and greater authoritarianism. You're seeing it in Poland, you're seeing it in Hungary, and you're starting to see it in Austria, which is not part of Eastern Europe, more part of the West. So it doesn't matter. The government banning speech, even if it believes it's malicious, even if it believes it's, quote, dangerous, that is a march towards fascism. That is not freedom. And the Germans started it by banning Holocaust denial, and the Polish have just taken it a whole new level. And it's inexcusable. And if you believe in freedom and you justify that, then you don't understand what freedom means. Freedom means saying things that some people believe are dangerous. That's what Galileo did. That's what Newton did. That's what the founding fathers did. That's what every thinker who discovers new truth has done. And it doesn't matter if you think they're right from an historical perspective. That's not the issue. Government has no business in history. Government has no business in ideas. Government doesn't dictate what happened in history or what doesn't happen in history or how it should be taught. That's one of the reasons we're against government schools. Government is not about deciding what's true and what's false. And when government gets into the business of defining what's true and what's false, that's when we march towards fascism. And Poland is well on the way, unfortunately, in that direction. And what it's done to its media and what it and Hungary have done to the media, where the government now is controlling what it tried to do to its Supreme Court, this is a lot of bad stuff. What Canada has been doing, about telling you how you should refer to a transgender person, criminalizing, using the wrong pronoun. All of that is the same thing. Left and right are uniting in government telling you what you can and cannot say. Really scary stuff. All right, you want scary stuff? But funny. This is scary and funny. I've got to play you this clip. Let's see if I can make this happen so that you can see it. Yeah, there we go. All right, I'm going to play you this clip. I apologize for how absurd and crazy it is. But for those of you who believe that religion is benign, for those of you who believe that religion doesn't kill, for those of you who believe that it's only Muslims that are bad guys, I want you to watch this televangelist. This nutty, crazy, insane televangelist talking about the flu epidemic. This is a blast. More scary stuff, but it's kind of funny.
Well, listen, partners. We don't have a flu season. We've got a duck season, a deer season, but we don't have a flu season.
No flu season.
And don't receive it when somebody threatens you with everybody's getting the flu.
No, only people don't believe in Jesus get the flu.
Shot. He bore our sicknesses and carried our diseases. That's what we stand on. And by his stripes...
Notice that, what she just said. She said, Jesus bore sicknesses. He's already suffered the flu for us. So if you're a real believer, if you really believe in Jesus, then you're not going to get the flu because he already had the flu. He already gave us, he inoculated us. He gave us a flu shot. By believing in him, we're inoculated from the flu. That's what she is suggesting. Now note that this has life or death implications for people. And notice what she does with regard to people who already have the flu.
We were healed. If you've already got the flu,
if you already got the flu,
I'm going to pray for you right now. Father, I pray for every person.
Oh, thank God she's praying.
I'm asking you, Lord, by your supernatural power, to heal them now from the top of their head to the soles of their feet. Flu, I bind you off of the people in the name of Jesus.
She's talking to the flu.
Jesus himself gave us the flu shot. He redeemed us from the curse of flu.
Did you hear that? Jesus himself gave us the flu shot. He redeemed us from the curse of the flu. I hope you're laughing.
We receive it and we take it, and we are healed by his stripes.
You're healed by
Amen.
Jesus.
You know, the Bible says he himself bore our sicknesses and carried our diseases. And by his stripes, we were healed. When we were healed, we are healed. So get on the word, stay on the word, and if you say, well, I don't have any symptoms of the flu, well, great, that's the way it's supposed to be.
Notice this primacy of consciousness now.
Saying that I'll never have the flu. I'll never have the flu. Put words, inoculate yourself with the word of God. He himself bore my sicknesses, carried my diseases, and by his stripes I was healed. I am healed. And Jesus is Lord. Hallelujah.
Oh my God. I apologize for that. I had to play it because it's so ludicrous. Now, that video has like 150,000 views on just that one Facebook page. Who knows what it's like on YouTube. But that is insane, people. That's insanity. But notice, even if she's right, think about a system of ideas to believe that some man, a son of God, whatever the hell that means, bore all your sicknesses. He suffered for you. You'll never be sick because he got what a horrible point of view. What a horrible religion. Why would somebody suffer for me? Why would somebody else be crucified and suffer all my diseases for no fault of his own? It's good guy, son of God, really cool. And yet he suffers. This is the evil, the real evil, the deep evil of altruism. The idea that somebody should suffer for somebody else's sins. And that's the symbol of Christianity, and that's what we're fighting against. That woman is what we're fighting against. Now, very few people believe it in the sense that she does, because when they get the flu, they're really sick. But then a lot of people get the flu and they feel really sick, and they think it's because they're sinners, because they don't believe deeply enough in Jesus Christ. So anyway, I am out of here, people. Hopefully you enjoyed today's show. We'll have to talk more about investing, and that would be fun. I would enjoy that. So we'll do a show about investing at some point. Thank you all for listening, And as I said, I'll be back on Sunday. I'll be back in Puerto Rico then, and we'll do a show. Might do a show between now and then, but probably not. So see you all over the weekend. Have a great week. Bye, everybody.